Time for a Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. Red Sox owner John Henry was in Fort Myers today as the team began full squad workouts. The team had a company-wide meeting that Henry attended but did not speak at. He also didn't speak with reporters as he did years ago. But he did answer questions via email with a few media outlets. Time for Carrying the Load presented by the Chevy Silverado. A theme with these quotes. First to the Boston Sports Journal on the team's spending, quote, "There's been a false narrative that we somehow stopped spending, completely unsupported by the facts, that we no longer sign free agents, that we're uninterested in or incapable of winning despite our track record." I saw an article last week about Bill Belichick that posited that he was no longer up to the task. That was ridiculous. It reminded me of the recent narrative surrounding us, close quote. Okay, when asked by The Athletic about being booed, Henry replied, "There's a false narrative." There's that phrase again. Surrounding the club, it really took hold in 2022. There were even false reports of booing at Fenway Park during the Winter Classic. I think those factors and losing Xander to San Diego were the biggest factors. Those are the fans you would believe are the least likely to try to shout us down. But it happened. Did anyone report the standing ovation at the end? Close quote. And that's where we begin our deep dive as we bring in John Tomase along with Boston Globe's Dan Shaughnessy, who is down in Fort Myers. And as we begin this discussion, you can join in by voting in our poll. How would you rate John Henry's performance as Red Sox owner? Vote at NBCSportsBoston.com/vote or scan the QR code. It's right there at the bottom of the screen and click on Early Edition. Dan Shaughnessy, thanks so much. You are down there in Fort Myers. No John Henry. What do you make of his comments, though, and the false narrative, the quote-unquote fake news, that's us calling it fake news, or I guess us saying that he's calling it fake news. What do you make of these comments that he made to both the Boston Sports Journal and The Athletic, Dan?
It's like an alternate universe. It's like delusional. I mean, I think he feels that we, myself and the media, is poisoning the fans against him and the team. But we're just reporting how things have been handled, what their plan seems to be, and what the track record's been. They finished last 5 times in 11 years, twice in 3 years. That's not the Red Sox. Even when I grew up, they never finished last, and they were bad then. So this is unacceptable. I also think they are behaving quite a lot like a mid-market team, signing one-year contracts. And, the narrative has just been they haven't kept the stars. They didn't keep Betts. They didn't keep Bogarts. I don't think that's acceptable when you own the Boston Red Sox.
It's very odd that he's trying to defend his team's approach to keeping their stars, as Dan mentions, John. They are still spending, but they're not spending on the players that people have watched here and that have grown to love and that know that those players can execute here in Boston. That, I feel like, is the issue with fans.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad Dan used the word delusional because that's the first word that popped into my head when I saw these comments. And it's just like, fans aren't mad at you because you're not spending because you're the Rays. Like, they still have a $200 million payroll. Fans are mad at you because they think your team stinks and they think you haven't brought in good players. And more to the point, they don't trust your plan. And we've talked about it a lot on these shows. Like, what is the plan? Is it to wait for minor leaguers? Because if it is, you're going to have multiple off seasons like the one we just finished where you're scrambling to field a roster. Phil Perry, you are scrambling to field a roster in February. You had to go out and sign guys just so you have a starting 9. That's not how the Red Sox should be run. That's what people are angry about.
And they're not hearing from the owner either. Dan, you wrote about this today for the Boston Globe. He has made his comments, but he's not met in a live situation with reporters en masse since February of 2020. Is it important for him to meet with the media, Dan? Sam Kennedy was on the radio earlier today. He said, I don't think our fans really care that he's not sitting on the bench down at Fort Myers talking to reporters. But what say you?
I always think it's best for the owner to meet with the media. Once a year is not asking a lot. They did it for 19 straight years. They were happy to take victory laps all those years on the picnic table. What's changed? Why not now? Why not be out there when the question's a little harder? I mean, I think the Red Sox are kind of a separate category. I think of them as sort of a public institution. I know they're not, but that's how we think of them. That's how they kind of promote Fenway Park and the Boston baseball experience. And to not be accountable, they haven't had a mass interview session in 3 years. And as John knows, John Henry tends to blurt out truths of these things. That's why they're valuable. Was that one of these 3 years ago when he blurted out that they were going to get under the collective, the bargaining tax there. And the direction of the team was kind of leaked out there. It's also when he said, I don't know if I'm fit to run the franchise after Theo walked off in the gorilla suit. So those moments are much better than email exchanges where it's a some sort of a corporate speak answer, although in this case, John certainly gave you some truths there, how he feels.
Yeah, and so I'm with Dan on this. You want to hear from the owners. I mean, how many years did we rip the Jacobs family for never addressing anything going on with the Bruins? We wanted to know what they had to say. And I just look at it, too. Henry was more than willing to, make his first appearance, poke his head out during the playoffs in 2021. Suddenly he's on the field at batting practice. Oh, would you like to talk to me? And he's doing, we talked to him on camera, we talked to him off camera. Suddenly he was everywhere because the team was good. Now there are legitimate questions to answer about the direction of the franchise. And now it's fake news. And the last thing I will say on this, when you own a newspaper and you start going down that road, that is a terrible look.
So Dan is down there, and we were wondering what the fan turnout has been. Here's a quick snapshot. 1, 2, what do we got here? 3, yep, 4, 5, 6. Okay, yep, somebody's blending in with the fencing back there. We got 8. We got 8 in the shot there. Dan, are fans flying to Fort Myers in droves this week? Because judging by that shot, the answer would be no.
They're not coming to these workouts. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. There's nobody there. There used to be an issue with parking. John knows this. And, where can we park and stay off this space here? You could park on the mound now. I mean, there's, it's open season down there. No fans. This is school vacation week, as you all know, back in New England, or in Massachusetts anyway. And the notion that people aren't coming out to the ballpark, that should tell them something, too. And part of this is not having stars, and it's not having players that the fans can identify with. And that's what you get when you have this payroll flexibility and a roster you turn around every year.
I don't want to hear about flexibility or depth ever again. You want talent. If you're the Boston Red Sox, you want talent. The depth guys should be the 23rd, 24th, 25th men on the roster, and the Red Sox are building it in the complete opposite direction. They're prioritizing those guys. I mean, just look at how this team is built, Phil. You have your best center fielder is playing shortstop. Your best left fielder is playing right field. Your center fielder is playing left. It's all messed up, and that's what fans are mad about.
Seems to make plenty of sense to me, John. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Henry, with more to say to the Boston Sports Journal, quote, "We've had setbacks with injuries already this season, but we expect to be competitive. We're at a different stage than the Yankees are, than Toronto this season. But we're in much better shape, than we were after 2021. 1 to 10, Tomase. How annoyed were you by this quote?
This was a 10 for me because I'm just like, so let me get this straight. Coming off your ALCS appearance when you still had Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Nathan Eovaldi, Christian Vasquez, JD Martinez, you were and all the prospects you have now, you were better situated now than you were then. What you did last year was criminal. You took a team that should have been all in on let's maximize the last year of all the guys I just mentioned outside of Devers, and you did nothing with it. And so to say that you're in better shape, do you know what that says to me, Dan? He's in better shape because I don't have to worry about paying Xander Bogaerts right now.
Yeah, Dan, it seems like they're closer to a last place finish than actually contending the way they want to. If that happens, are we looking at a blow up here? Is that something that would finally resonate with ownership?
Well, that's one of the things that worries me is that, some people try to paint this as a bridge year, which would be actually okay compared to this could be falling off the cliff year, and it could get worse before it gets anywhere near better. I mean, they could be worse than last year. A lot of their hopes are based on that exact word, hope, not based on performance, expectations, age of players, people in their prime. It's hoping all these things break their way, and it's highly unlikely.
All right, one last quote from The Athletic here. When asked if he could have done anything differently in the negotiations with Xander Bogaerts, Henry replied, quote, "We could have offered 12 years, exclamation point. You might as well have just tacked on an LOL, John, a couple of laughing face emojis. It feels like he wasn't taking that question seriously when there was a real answer that he could have provided there.
Yeah, that was offensive to me, and I'm going to let Dan take this one. But just the idea of you could have negotiated with him in good faith in April or March last year, and this would have ended up totally differently.
Yeah, if you're going to talk about false narratives and ask for substance, don't be disingenuous with an answer like that. He knows very well that has nothing to do with it, that the final offer, 11 years, that wasn't the issue. They didn't take care of this when they could have. They let it get out of hand. Nobody's saying they should have given him 11, 12 years. What we're saying is you should have taken care of this last year. Give him Trevor Story money last year. It'd still be here.
All right, we've got the results from our poll here. How would you rate John Henry's performance as owner of the Boston Red Sox? And we are at a robust 2.1 out of 5 stars. You surprised by that, John Tomase?
No, because it's what have you done for me lately? I think that's a tad unfair to the guy who came in and they hadn't won a World Series in 86 years, and he's now won 4 in the last 20. So I think the totality of John Henry's ownership is better than 2. But if you're grading him on the last 3 years, that number is high.
Where would you rate him, Dan?
No, I agree with John there. I mean, it's not fair to say, oh, this is terrible, 2.1 out of 5. I mean, you got to look at the totality of the body of work. And, New England's darn lucky this guy bought the team and won 4 championships after not winning for 86 years. Can't take that away. What troubling is what direction they're headed in. And that gives you pause, for concern right now.